Hi, my name is Liang Zhou Koh. I'm a graduate student in philosophy at the University of Toronto, and today I want to talk to you about how mind reading works. There are two major ways of explaining how we track the mental states of others and use this to predict and explain their actions: theory and simulation theory. To get a basic idea of these theories, consider the following example. Suppose you want to find out how a new model of airplane might behave under certain wind conditions. How may you do so without flying an actual airplane? One way to go about this would be to sit down with the measurements of the plane and a textbook on aerodynamic theory and work out the answer. Alternatively, you can build a model of the plane, run a simulation, and observe how it behaves in a wind tunnel. The debate between theory theorists and simulation theorists concerns which of these two approaches best describe how mind reading works. Theory theorists argue that we mind read by drawing on a tested body of information about the mind. In other words, a theory of mind, like our textbook. This theory of mind contains information about how mental states are connected to sensory stimuli, observable behavior, and other mental states. This is how mind reading works according to theory theory. Suppose you saw a roommate Jane preparing to bake a cake, but is now getting ready to head out after discovering that she has run out of eggs at home. With the help of your theory of mind, you can then infer from these observations some of Jane's beliefs and goals. You can then use the principle that people generally act in ways which, by the light of their beliefs, allow them to achieve their goals, to explain why she's heading out, and to predict that she'll be heading to the grocery store. Simulation theorists, on the other hand, argue that mind reading does not depend on any theory of mind. Instead, we figure out how other people will think and act by using our own mind as a model to simulate their mental states. Mind reading, according to simulation theory, goes like this. You begin by imaginatively projecting yourself into Jane's situation and adopting her point of view on the world. This will allow you to simulate the beliefs and goals she has. You can then feed these pretend or imaginary mental states into your own decision-making system to figure out how someone with those beliefs and goals will act. Which of these accounts got it right? There have been many compelling arguments offered for and against each of them. In this video, we will approach this debate by looking at some issues revolving around the development of mind reading. As findings from false belief tests suggest, children below the age of 4 find it hard to grasp the perspective of someone whose beliefs differ from their own. These children tend to commit egocentric errors and expect other people to act in ways that make sense given their own beliefs about the world. Simulation theorists argue that their theory has a straightforward explanation for this. Recall that, on their account, we generate predictions about how others will act by fitting simulated beliefs and desires into our own decision-making system. When we engage in mind reading by simulation, there is therefore a danger that our own genuine beliefs and desires may be confused with these pretend states. The errors that young children make, simulation theories argue, are due to an underdeveloped capacity to quarantine their own mental states when predicting the actions of others. Theory theorists, on their part, have offered many alternative explanations for these empirical results. According to defenders of what is known as the child as little scientist version of theory theory, we develop our theory of mind through a process of hypothesis testing and revising. Children are like little scientists who formulate hypotheses to predict and explain what they observe, and revise these hypotheses when they generate the wrong predictions. On this view, children under the age of 4 fail the false belief task because they have not acquired a fully fledged theory of mind. On the other hand, theory theorists who argue that our theory of mind is innate rather than learned would argue that younger children's understanding of belief may be masked by performance factors due to limits in their executive functions or language abilities. Research on mind reading in infancy provides us with another lens to look at these theories through. Findings that infants as young as 15 months old show implicit signs of false belief understanding have been cited in support of simulation theory. Suppose these results do show that infants are mind readers. Simulation theories argue that the theorizing model is too complex to explain how infants mind read, since it requires them to reason using mental state concepts. it is more plausible to see infants as simply imagining how the world is like from a different perspective. Recall, however, the idea that children under the age of 4 tend to commit egocentric errors due to their underdeveloped capacity to quarantine their genuine mental states when mind-reading. We may wonder why infants' performance in implicit false belief tasks is not equally susceptible to these errors. On the other hand, proponents of the child as little scientist version of theory, who argue that we only develop a full-blown theory of mind around the age of 4, seem to have the most difficulty explaining how infants might read. However, there may be important differences in how we pass implicit and explicit false belief tasks. It may be possible that we have two separate systems for mind reading, an early emerging but fast and limited one, and a later emerging but flexible and more powerful one. Such a two systems view may help theory theorists explain why infants may be sensitive to false beliefs in others without a fully fledged theory of mind. As our brief discussion indicates, the debate between theory and simulation theory is a rich and complex one. There are significant areas of disagreement not only between both of these theories, but also within each theoretical camp. There is also an emergent consensus that mind reading is a multifaceted phenomenon that cannot be fully explained by either theory or simulation alone. We may need a hybrid account that incorporates elements of both theories to explain how mind reading works. How to best understand the respective roles played by theorizing and mental simulation, as well as their relative importance, however, are key questions that remain unanswered.